Welcome, friends, to High Rock's Being Church class. Soon after High Rock Church was born, we began looking for a denominational partner. After extensive research, we narrowed our list down to 16 denominations we suspected would be most compatible, and then to 8 and to 4. We interviewed leaders from each of those 4, and when we'd whittled it down to 2 finalists, Peter Sung, High Rock's first associate pastor, and I went to the national gatherings for both of them. But we almost didn't, because the gathering for the Evangelical Covenant Church, better known as The Covenant, took place in Chicago. Now, you may be thinking, but Chicago's a lovely place. Yes, but that's only because I haven't finished. The week-long gathering was held in Chicago in February. Now, I know that most people think that hell is hot, but I have been to Chicago in February, and I beg to differ. I began to wonder about the wisdom of this denomination. I mean, have they not heard of Key West? If they can't get these simple decisions right, how could I trust them with more important issues? But off to Chicago we went, and it was freezing outside, just like I expected. What I hadn't expected was how warm it was inside. It was a collection of hundreds of pastors, and they came in all types, all ages and ethnicities, many not using English as a primary tongue. There were men and women. I mean, already this was exceptional, but even more so was another kind of diversity that I'd never seen before in any denomination. The conference included workshops punctuated by 3 worship services each day, which may not appeal to you, but as a pastor, 3 worship services that I could just enjoy without having to plan them was delightful. Anyway, I'd read that the Covenant was descended from Swedish Lutherans, so I had a general idea about what to expect. But walking into that first worship service, I encountered something I didn't expect. The service was being led by a black storefront Pentecostal church. So there was shouting and swaying and music that raised the roof. The sermon was convicting, and I delivered in the melodic, almost poetic style of some black churches. Lutherans? I don't think so. And which part of Sweden were they from? I don't know, but clearly I'd misunderstood what the Covenant was about. I hadn't realized it was a charismatic denomination. But now that I knew that, I was better prepared for the midday service, which had been billed as a service of prayer and healing. I'd been to some prayer and healing services in charismatic churches, so I knew just what to expect. So imagine my surprise when some guy in a white robe and a hat like the Pope kicked off the service by walking down the aisles, swinging incense and singing in Latin. It was a powerful service in which each of us were invited to come up front to be prayed for individually and anointed with holy oil. It spoke to my soul, but it also left me more confounded than ever. These folks didn't seem like the Lutherans I knew either. I mean, they're more like Roman Catholics. So I had no idea what to expect for the evening service, which turned out to be in the tradition of the mainline Protestant churches, backed up by a choir of more than 60 mostly blonde men. Swedish Lutherans, that's what I'd imagined. All this left me a bit disoriented. How could all of these people be in the same denomination? In seminary, I'd studied the long history of Christians splitting from each other over the most minute theological or cultural distinctions, and even resorting to violence. Did these Covenanters miss that day at seminary? Did they not know they're supposed to hate each other? My amazement that week was about more than just the worship services. During breaks, I'd overhear 2 pastors sitting down over coffee, debating some theological idea, reaching for their Bibles to make their cases, and I'd think to myself, oh, I know where this is heading, because I'd been to seminary, so I know that tensions and voices will slowly rise until one of them finally shouts through angry tears, "You're going to hell!" And the other one replies defiantly, "Where I'm sure I'll see you!" Yeah, I know where these doctrinal debates go, but what I saw that week in Chicago was different. I'd pass that same table 10 minutes later and overhear one of the debaters ask gently, "Hey, last year you said that your marriage was struggling. How's that going? Well, that's not how the debates went in seminary. I mean, yes, there were still some tears, but they fell as one of the debaters was laying his hands on the other and praying for him compassionately. They disagreed fervently, but they loved each other deeply. Who are these people? What is this strange cult I've uncovered? They were Covenanters. At the heart of the Covenant denomination are simultaneous commitments to both unity and diversity, believing that both reflect the very nature of our three-in-one God. Specifically, they pledged unity on the essentials, liberty on the unessentials, and love overall. Actually, a lot of denominations might agree to that, but the list of essentials keeps growing and growing until there's no room left for any questions or curiosity. They feel a need to establish a final word on every issue, even questions Christians have debated for centuries because the Bible just isn't as clear as the denomination's statement of faith is. Bucking that trend, the Covenanters had the humility to know what they couldn't know for sure, or at least what they didn't know yet. So there was still room to keep learning and listening to others. Even when they were pretty sure they did know, if it was a non-essential matter, they chose to love each other more than they loved their own opinions. Now, this didn't mean they couldn't hold strong convictions. It just meant that they held them with humility and charity toward those who disagree. That was a kind of spiritual community I'd never experienced before. I'd seen people who didn't take their convictions seriously in order to maintain peace, and I'd seen people who'd prefer to go to war over the slightest disagreement as proof of their devotion. The Covenant was different. And after spending a week spying on them in Chicago, Pastor Peter and I realized that we could only be invited back to this special place if we convinced High Rock to join this denomination. So, welcome to High Rock Covenant Church. What we loved about it was that we discovered a community that was not only spiritually vibrant, sacrificially missional, and relationally warm, it was also exceptionally thoughtful. Truth was too important to lock in a box out of reach, but needed to be tested over and over in community with people from different cultures and perspectives so that these ideas could be trusted. I wasn't asked to choose between my mind and my soul, but required to bring both into every conversation. The Covenant doesn't have a statement of faith the way that most denominations do. We rely on the Bible as our statement of faith, but not any one person's interpretation of it. The Bible should be the source of our convictions and the basis of our objections. Covenanters often ask, "Where is it written?" Meaning, well, that's a very clever idea you have, but can you show me how the Bible supports it? Instead of creating uniformity by imposing a statement of faith that's binding on everyone, the Covenant has built unity on the foundation of 6 affirmations, each of which you'll hear mentioned in this series of videos. These affirmations are not the final word on truth. They're the guardrails that keep us faithful in our search for God's truth. They ensure we keep exploring to the very edges without falling off the edge into ideological fundamentalism or emotionalism or cultural captivity. I love the Covenant because all of what I've described so far created a safe place to explore my convictions with people who disagreed with me without being angry with me as a result. That allowed me to continue learning and growing because there was room to change my mind without having to change my denomination or lose relationships that had become precious to me. This course is designed to introduce you to this kind of spiritual community and invite you deeper inside. To be clear, it's offered by High Rock Church, but you don't need to be a part of High Rock or the Covenant to take part. This course is open to anyone who wants to learn how to have charitable, spiritual conversations so that we all can become better bridge builders in a culture that's too often building walls. Each session will consist of 2 parts. The first, in which someone will explain one of the 6 affirmations, and the second, in which we'll try to model this way of being in relationship as 2 covenanters with unique backgrounds and experiences, or even different theological ideas, enter into an unscripted conversation about how they each understand that affirmation. This will be truly special. We're hoping to model the kinds of spiritual conversations that are possible when we're committed to have Christ-centered relationships with people who are different from us. Or put another way, to have unity without requiring complete uniformity. Friends, I'm so glad that you're taking this course with us, because I believe that not only does our church need more of this, but our world does too. Today, our culture too quickly cancels or crucifies anyone who dares to disagree or even ask hard questions, which not only leaves little room for nuance or dialogue, this spirit of division and dogmatism also leaves very little room for love or for truth. Church, we can be different. Jesus' disciples disagreed about many things, but Jesus showed them a strange but spirit-filled way to relate that allowed them to grow in both truth and love. We are followers of Jesus. So my prayer for our church is that the Holy Spirit might use this series of videos to help us do that too.